Hey guys, here I'm back and I'm gonna do a small double feature on in this vlog. I know, been so long. Man, this was kind of like the harshest winter we got through, and this absence that I got, I actually have a few reasons, of course. For starters, I will say that, believe it or not, I got the first 2 weeks. I got the flu. The first week, I was 2 weeks in bed with fever, dizziness, all the things that you can imagine from what you can get from the flu. I had mucus, sore throat. It started out like that in the first week, but then the second week I had all this mucus choking me. I couldn't even sleep for days. So I had to go to the doctor in order to, so he could give me some antibiotics, and well, I got healed up, and then right now I am going through some personal anxiety related things that is even affecting me a little bit, and this process takes a little bit longer. I'm not gonna go too much into details, but let's say that I'm gonna try to do a little bit more of argotherapy, and honestly, it was while it sounded like a bad experience, it gave me a few new hobbies that I had to go through. But you know what? I still was thinking, you know what? I saw two movies during these moments, and I wanted to share at least on the vlog, and of course that will help me out, on that therapy that I've gone through. So this is basically the whole enchilada of why I'm gonna be a little bit absent on the next few days. But it'll give me opportunity to do things for myself and even watch the movie just for myself. But I think that I want to share you about the last two movies that I went to see, which are Scream 7 and Hoppers. I know it's a little bit too late for that, but you know what? I don't care. I don't go. I'm not exactly the kind of guy who is very hooked to making movie reviews at the wake of the whole thing. Sometimes. So let's start out with Scream 7, shall we? I'm not exactly the biggest fan of the Scream franchise. I do have some kind of fun experience, but in third person, because I always remember that my mom was watching television and she found kind of like a very interesting movie. And then, since my mother is not a fan of horror movies, when she found out that it was a slasher, she immediately couldn't sleep. She got scared and she told me the story about it. And I was like, what kind of horror movie were you watching? Well, it's about these guys that were having a party, and then this guy with a kind of like this mask comes out and kills him. And I was like, oh, that's great. And I watched most of the Scream movies, I'll say. Yeah. The first one, of course, it still holds up. There's some things that doesn't hold up, but it was kind of like a time capsule of the era, and so, but it was kind of like as far as I can remember, it was kind of like this deconstruction of the slasher horror, I'll say. And with the production and direction of Wes, and some of the help with Wes Craven, it was kind of like a legendary movie. I don't exactly remember the second and the third one. The only thing that I remember from the second is that, well, it has that movie theater. It had that movie theater scene that always on my head, and of course the twist. I don't remember the third one. I think I skipped the fourth one. I haven't seen the fourth one. I do remember the fifth movie. That this is when I started watching those movies on the big screen. The fifth one wanted it was fine. I'll say it wanted. This is where the term requel happened, because all the Scream movies is more kind of like a deconstruction of the horror slasher genre, and sometimes it becomes a little bit too meta in itself, but still acting like a horror movie. It wanted to it wanted to showcase kind of like a new generation, but also bringing back the old characters. Although they kill off one of them, of course. I'm talking about Dewey. The sixth one, I didn't even bother to make a vlog out of it, but I did watch it, and I was like, what's the point? The only thing that is memorable is that the sixth one doesn't have the protagonist, the final girl, Sydney, into it. Was it Sydney or Cindy? Yes, Sydney is the Nev Campbell character. Sorry if that sometimes I mix up her Sydney with Cindy from Scary Movie. Just in case, yes, I am eager for the upcoming Scary Movie, because I love the first and the second Scary Movie. The third one is a guilty pleasure. And although the fourth one sucks so much that I didn't bother with the fifth one. I'm gonna go much into detail when I watch it during the summer. But going back to Scream, Scream 6 didn't have Sydney this time. It only had Courtney Cox and the new character Sam Carpenter. And then I thought that this was gonna be kind of like the end, but they were planning a seventh one. But I heard there were some rewrites because the new protagonist, she apparently said something bad, and I don't exactly know too much about the details, and so they fire her. So they don't have the new character anymore. So, well, we got out with the seventh. They brought back Sydney. They brought back Nev Campbell, of course. And while I didn't watch it immediately. I was sick during the time that it was announced, and I was torn between if I wanted to watch that or that other horror movie, that's Psycho Killer. I've been hearing bad things about Psycho Killer. But because I know someone who was kind of like, he said that he had fun with the Scream 7, but I've been also hearing the bad reviews. I decided to watch it for myself because I'm a little bit familiar. And you know what? I can understand that there are people that defend this movie, but I am not one of them. I'm sorry to say, but Scream 7 was not good. I mean, I was entertained in some areas. I can tell that there are some areas that I'll say, okay, maybe I could go for some popcorn. I'm not going to say that I hate it completely, but I can tell a bad movie for what it is. Because, well, for starters, the whole thing felt kind of like disjointed. I mean, it has this obnoxious opening in which the kind of the house where the climax of the first movie happened, because in this universe the whole event for the first movie they adapted into a movie called The Stab. And well, some obnoxious dude who is kind of like a big fan is like, hey, look at this acting. I'm he's very happy to be on a murder house in which he has all these props, and because it's almost like a bed and breakfast kind of thing. And while the girlfriend's like, I don't know. And of course they become the victims of the new ghost face, and it burns the house. And then we jump back and we finally see Sydney after being absent in the first movie. She now has a daughter who she overprotects her, and she even to the point that she's not allowing her to get a boyfriend that jumps on the window and jumps on the from the window. I mean, he, like the guy from Clarice Explained and all that. He grabs the ladder and climbs the window. And it was kind of like a very 80s, 90s thing when you think about it. It's kind of like this rebellious streak. And also, she reluctantly doesn't want the daughter who she named her after her friend, who I don't remember that he was very close to her. She was named after the girl who in the first movie was killed by Ghostface by being crushed by a garage door. I don't remember if she was very how could I say very attached to her because honestly I don't remember much. But either way, here's the thing. The movie mostly wanted to take on that. Yeah, Ghostface technically burned the house because now he wants the attention of Sydney. But here's the big twist. In the first movie, there were actually two culprits. First, Billy, who was the boyfriend, and the other one is the guy who was played by what was the name of the guy who played Shaggy again? Give me a second. His name's kind of escaped me. Escaped me again. Matt. Sorry, it's the guy who plays Stu. The name of the character is named Stu. It's Stu. Oh yeah, let me go there. Sorry, sometimes I get a little bit forgetful. I don't. Sorry about that. Give me a second. Give me a second. What does I? Oh yeah, Matthew Lillard. That's the name, Matthew Lillard. The name always escapes me, but the thing is that in the first movie he died. He died. He was crushed by a television that he pushes into him. But apparently they say there are rumors that he's still alive. The body wasn't found, and then of course he taunts Sydney saying, "I'm gonna kill your family and everyone connected to you. Come and get me. Come and get me." You know, Matthew Lillard acting like Matthew Lillard and all this stuff. So, and of course, everyone is questioning if he's alive or not because AI technology. Yeah, the movie wanted to make kind of like this AI thing, and basically it just plays out just like every Scream movie to put things short. Short. The character, of course, we also have the return of Courtney Cox as the reporter, and now and I don't remember much about the last movie, but we also the only character for the new generation that appeared are the twins. The twins who are always bigger, and they kind of know that they're horror tropes, but now they become Courtney Cox's assistant, Gail Weathers, and that's the name of the character, Gail Weathers. Weathers. Well, the story structure is fine, I'll say. I mean, some of the kills were actually interestingly horrifying, but it follows almost the same premise as the first movie to a tease, even to the point that it borrows a lot of things from it, even some scenes from the first kill from the first movie, as well as the execution of how the bedroom scene at the beginning happened. And this is where the movie falls down. Because this movie, it feels like it has to rely on nostalgia by saying, "Hey, remember this?" He put kind of like Easter eggs here and there, a lot of Easter eggs, and the whole premise. It does feel like a poor carbon copy the first movie, and it's almost like a, "Hey, nudge nudge, wink wink. Remember the what was it? The jacket? That's the jacket that Sydney wore when she was in college. Nudge nudge, wink wink. Remember remember that looks like this, and remember the house and all this stuff." And well, and of course, we got, of course, the list of subjects or the people in the meat grinder. I already told you that the daughter has a boyfriend who may or may not be the killer. There's also the neighbor woman who she is kind of a little bit overprotective of her son, who the son is kind of a creep who he wants to know almost he stalks Sydney all for the because of he wants the details of what happened to her, because why she didn't go to New York and all this stuff, because he wants to make a podcast but he acts like a creep. There's other characters who are kind of like forgettable, like the friends of the sister. There's also what was it, Sydney's husband who is a cop. Oh, who is a cop, and he tries to help her, trying to find out if Stu is still alive and all this stuff. So they go, into this thing, and Sydney is a little bit too overprotective of her daughter, to the point that she didn't even teach her, how to defend herself either. She almost is kind of like a helicopter mother, I'll say. And that kind of makes her a little bit understandably annoying, because, well, when you try to put 2 plus 2 about how human behavior could happen after, surviving 5 movies, -1 because she doesn't appear there. I think Sydney could have been a little bit more smarter when trying to protect her daughter. And well, we got Ghostface, of course. Ghostface is still kind of like entertaining. The hello Sydney or something like that. Although he doesn't appear almost too much, or you hear the voice, because most of the time it's just Matthew Lillard going ape shit like I'm gonna get you or something like that. And well, some of the I can understand some of the kills were kind of like wow or something like that, but I will say this: there is one kill that is downright nasty in the right way, because that guy really had it bad. Let's say that it has to do with a bar and a beer keg. I will leave it at that. But let me tell you, I was going through a bad anxiety during that moment, and it made me wanted to throw up. But man, that part was effective. So you even thought, you know what? Now that I think about it, you might be thinking, hey, why? If this a movie is, I think that sometimes when a movie is a carbon copy, sometimes I let it slide. Sometimes. So where this movie loses me mostly happens in the climax. The climax has some really, really dumb moments, and then it comes to the final twist. The reveal. The reveal of that movie was so stupid and nonsense that it lost me. It's almost like they wanted to derail you from the clues, or the clue was there, but it was like, hey, seen it before and all this stuff, but it doesn't connect so much. You know what? I think I'm gonna do something rare that I do with my double vlogs, and that is the spoiler reveal, the screen spoiler alert. Okay, here's the thing. Oh God, sorry. It's just that it's so stupid. At first. The first Ghostface that was stalking them was a mental escape patient that had nothing to do with it. And then, when things keep happening, the movie continues with the mystery. The daughter is captured, And then they tie her up in the same vein as that boyfriend from the first movie, even though Sydney wasn't there to see or recognize something like that. And then we get kind of like that two Ghostface, because if you remember in many of those Scream movies, it's not just one; it could be two or three of them. It's almost like there's a cult of Ghostface. Well, the first Ghostface, it was a doctor, the doctor from the he's a mental health doctor, and he only appears in one scene, and you barely know that he is important. And somehow, he's like, hey, guess what? Stu is dead. That Stu you made is AI, because I was a technician, and I know how to make this AI. And the mastermind is the neighbor mother. And for some reason, her or not, she doesn't care that she killed off her son. Yes, her son, he gets the worst death, by the way, the one with the beer keg. But did she kill her son or something like that? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't even explain. And the reason is baffling. The big reason is that, for some reason, they've been saying that Sydney wrote a book about surviving, all these Ghostface killings. Then, apparently, it empowered her enough to kill her abusive husband. And apparently, she sees Sydney as a hero, but gets very disappointed because she wasn't in New York for Spring 6th. And so she decided to use all these events to lure her out in order to make a new generation or something, kind of like the new Sydney, making even the daughter become kind of like the new Sydney, or Sydney making a comeback or something like that. And that's it. I don't know about the kids who are screaming outside or playing, but yeah, that was the twist. That's the twist. It's insanely nonsense. It's almost like, it felt like they just do it this just cause. So it's gonna take this movie is kind of like getting interested, because I know there are people that are defending this film. I don't feel like I have kind of like my time to do that. I have kind of like better things to think about it, but that that it feels kind of something felt kind of like inconsistent when you try to piece it together. So I think that's enough of the spoiler sake. But still, yeah, Scream 7. Scream 7, I can see it almost like a popcorn film if you try to ignore all the inconsistencies, the reasoning about that whole motivation and all this stuff. Again, I don't hate it as much as many people did. I can see why they get entertained because of some of the execution, but story-wise, I think that the Scream franchise could really need a break. Maybe a more couple of years they could reboot it into its own thing with a modern take. Oh wait, they kind of did, but not without Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox. I respect these actresses, but again, like I said, the problem with this movie is that it kind of relies a little bit too much on the nostalgia, but it focuses a little bit too much on that instead of making a bit more of a coherent story, I'll say, then maybe come up with a better twist, I'll say. But well, that's technically my opinion on Scream 7, so I think it is a good time to hop to Hoppers. Hey, look at me! just like Avatar, I turn into Spencer. So I'm gonna talk to you like I am a robot crow. No, no, not really, not really. Thank you for warming my seat, Spencer. All right. After talking about Scream 7, I think it's time for me to talk about Hoppers, the latest Disney Pixar movie. And if you know me, and I already said so much, Pixar is struggling, let's say, to put it a little bit less harsh. It's struggling in some areas. Not many of their movies was well done. I think that the last time I got kind of like a great moment with Pixar was with Coco, and after that, it went even downhill from there. And I even saw the Pixar movie that I consider the worst, which is none other than Turning Red. God, I freaking really despise that movie. So, and of course, we get after disappointment, just like Family Guy, joke that I even made on one of those vlogs. It's no longer a home run. So, and so after being disappointed with many of those Disney Pixar movies, and of course the dreaded and upcoming Toy Story 5 that is coming this summer, we got this one, Hoppers, which at first, the last time was Elio, and that movie gets worse and worse every time I think about it. When I saw the trailer Hoppers, the first thing that came to my mind is that it felt like a DreamWorks movie, or an Illumination or a Blue Sky movie that somehow gets invaded a Pixar movie with the dull colors and all this stuff and all that, and the tone really felt like a Blue Sky Studio movie or an Illumination or something like that, which is kind of like out of place. When they make joke like, oh, it's just like Avatar. It's just like Avatar. Yeah, because that's what I wanted to see on a Pixar movie. A Pixar movie that it feels more like a Disney movie, but the Disney animation, and not like Pixar like we used to. That usually heartwarming but yet fun and all that. That is the kind of like the missing piece that Pixar is having right now. And this one, of course, the first glance, it reminded me of that animated movie that I haven't seen, but I know the tone, called I think it was called The Wildlife or something like that, it's a franchise with the deer, and I think it was the deer and a bear or something like that. I don't remember much, but I still want to give Pixar a try because they're trying at least. I only dislike their practices. It's not. I don't hate it, right? But like it, because hate is a strong word, let's say. And now that I've seen Hoppers, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that this movie was better than I thought it was gonna be. It's probably a little bit of a step up in terms of Disney Pixar movies. So I just came out liking the movie fine. But here's the bad news. It's not good enough for, Rotten Tomatoes and people saying that the old tired theme that's saying that Pixar is back. You know what? I'm sick and tired of hearing people saying Pixar is back and all this stuff. It's not back. It was always there. It's just struggling. And this movie is not as emotionally strong or good compared to the first Toy Story or Up or Coco, let's say. It doesn't reach that emotional level, at least yet. This one the best way I can say is that it's I can say that it's a mixed bag. It tries well, but unfortunately, it has some obnoxious elements that you're either gonna take it or you're gonna be confused. But also, you can notice that it really leans a little bit too much on one side of what it tried. Sorry about that. It lies too heavily about the messagey that it wants to take one side very heavily, but it wants to take the other one reluctantly. And from what you could tell, this movie is an environmental message movie. Sit down. I know. A lot of cartoons when they talk about the environment is not exactly it's not exactly good news, because either you come off as preachy or sometimes tone deaf or whatever it comes. It is almost the same effect that many people have with Captain Planet. Captain Planet was this cartoon made by Ted Turner that is really environmentally messagey heavy, and sometimes it is as subtle as a rock on the sand or something like that. It's not exactly very subtle. It's just very in your face. This one is no exception, because the story centers around this. It centers around this girl named Mabel, who she's an extremist environmentalist, because even as a girl, she has temper issues, and she basically steal the school animals in order to free them and all that stuff. And that is because she has she doesn't get along with her parents, and every time she preferred to go to her grandmother. The grandmother, who is also an environmentalist, who lives in a glade, and they have this kind of like this special spot in which they listen to the trees, the animals, and she finds inner peace, and she becomes an environmentalist. Then the grandmother died, and now she's 19 years old and in college, and well, she is so much of an extremist environmentalist that she even picks fight with the mayor, because the mayor decides to build a highway on there. But of course, that's not the only time which they kind of like fight. And she really goes into this extreme. The two of them yell at each other, and well, then the mayor said that, hey, grab some petitions and we will talk. And because she fails, and also, the mayor also tells her that, you know what, I'll reconsider if I see at least one beaver on the glade, because there's no beavers there. So she tries to get a beaver from the glade, and then finds out that her university and her teacher, they are working on an experimental technological project, in which basically, almost like Avatar, you put yourself kind of like in a machine, in a chair that has kind of like this gadget that puts on your head, kind of like a VR, and your mind gets into a robot that looks like an animal. In this case, a beaver. So because Mabel wants to save the glade and all that, against the teacher's wishes, she gets her mind into a beaver body, and then goes to the glade to try to convince the animals to move back to the glade, so they can't, the guy doesn't, the mayor, who was named Jerry, don't destroy it. And basically it turns almost like her starting an uprising with the animals, and then things get out of control, because, well, you can't force nature and all this stuff. And here's the thing, the movie tries a little bit too hard to make a message about the consequences of environmental extremists. And I for myself, yes, I'm aware of the environment, and I know that we should coexist and be in peace, be with the animals, and I get it. I don't like too much when I see the progress of humanity, that because of overpopulation we have to build more places. I mean, there was kind of like a nice area where I previously lived, but unfortunately now it's bulldozed. It's bulldozed because I don't know what they're gonna construct there, and it's sad because that area I used to love watching the rabbits. Although I can understand kind of like the progress, but man, that I don't think that this movie kind of made the message very clear. Again, it feels pretty much one-sided. It's because it still wanted to say that humanity bad, but it kind of feels like reluctantly saying that, well, maybe not all of them are bad or something like that, but it wasn't well characterized because it centers a little bit too much on the Mabel character, and gotta say that this character, it starts out insufferable. She's basically, in bad ways, she kind of began to remind me of Elio, because Elio was also a piece of garbage character. This kid was so obnoxious, so annoying, and very amoral. I mean, he stole a kid's radio. Mabel also kind of goes with stealing animals and all this stuff, but unfortunately, the movie also wanted to take her side by saying that, come on, you did that or something like that. Even the grandma felt like she just brushed it off and all this stuff, and she doesn't get punished for all of this. I mean, she got a bad relationship with the parents, yeah, but we know that she have kind of like this temper issues, but I will give the movie credit where it's due, because at least the movie kind of make her realize the error of her ways, but unfortunately it doesn't come off too spontaneous, because she doesn't technically get a harsher punishment for that. She doesn't lose too much. This is when I say that you have to make the stakes a little bit higher. I'll get to that just in case, but still, for the sake of a character that must learn a harsh lesson about extremism and environment, it doesn't. She basically still kind of becomes the same character. She grows very little. I'll say she only grows very, very little. And of course, then we got the other characters. When we get to with the animals, the biggest one that we know is this guy. I think it was called George, or King George. Is kind of like the king of the mammals, the beaver king. That guy is very likable. Although for some reason he reminds me of King Julian from Madagascar, but a little bit more toned down. I think it's because of the whole king thing, and he is old, he's wiser, he's a bit bumbly, let's say, but he's adorable, let's say. He's kind of like this adorable kind of character, and I like that the movie really kind of emphasized that everything about nature is global. Humans are also part of it. They just move on with their lives. They go into new places. They have to adjust because, well, human is part of the world, and also, well, they have their pond rules, in which basically the pond rules even includes the law of nature, which is dog eat dog world. You must let yourself get eaten or something like that. That the law of nature is the strong survive, the weak die. They don't put it kind of like in a harsh way, let's say. I mean, if it was much harsh, these animals would just go like blood everywhere, something like that. Oh, I'm serious, people. I know they wanted to make it family friendly, but if you see nature in real life, is horrifyingly gory and disgusting. Also, I like that the whole thing that when they call this council, the council is that each animal has a king or a queen. That like birds, reptile, and all this and all these things, even the insects. And the insects, let's say that they become the villain. Let's say also I would say this the main villain is not the mayor. Just in case, I'll get to that mayor. It's actually a caterpillar. The caterpillar who becomes mad with power. And honestly, the movie could have done a little bit better without him, because it felt like this is a villain that was forced just to be a villain. I'll say. And for a movie, I kind of wish that this movie, instead of having a villain because they just needed a villain for Disney's sake, maybe it could have been better if Mabel was herself her own villain. Because sometimes the biggest villain is yourself. And this is where I come with the mayor named Jerry. How they handle Jerry is kind of like the biggest gripe that I have with this movie. Because the movie tries a little bit too hard on making that shitty, awful version of the Lorax. In which we got the mayor. He's very narcissistic, all of himself. It's almost like he was the Jerry from Rick and Morty. But he doesn't listen, but we know less of him, and he's just portrayed as just a caricature who cares re-election or something like that, and he's very goofy. And so this material has been done to death in many of those environmentalist things. And yeah, the movie wanted to try saying that it only gives very, very subtle moments in which that despite that, he's very nice with his mother, but it just comes up just for a few moments, and we don't see almost nothing kind of like positive for this guy. It's just kind of like, he's the jerkish mayor. That's it. The movie could have been better if it tries to make a connection or with the communication between Mabel and the mayor. And also, should have given kind of like a reason the mayor was constructing the highway and why he can't, instead of just saying that it's gonna ruin my reputation, or it's gonna ruin my reputation or something like that. How about, like, for example, do like One Piece set made in One Piece? It kind of comes to like a moment in which some people destroy the trees and the natives are angry. But then at least they come up with a reason that they cut the trees because those trees were plagued with an infection, with these infections that could kill them. Maybe he could have said, like, for example, look, we relocated we had to relocate these animals because they relocate the animal by putting these fake trees with that have these sounds that only the animals can hear, but they harm them, of course. Yeah, I know that's bad enough. Let's say it's pretty bad because that actually harms them more than make them more harm than good. But they could also come, for example, saying that, look, we need this highway because let's say, for example, the city has this it's having problems that they're how best I can describe it, because I'm just trying to put things on my head right now. Is they need this highway so they can make the easier the problem with parking with the parkings in this place, or it will help people get to their jobs better or something, whatever excuse you want to give it, but unfortunately they don't do that, and you can tell that this movie went through some. I can probably tell that this movie maybe went through some rewrites in which it wanted to showcase so much on the environmental side, and the other side it felt like almost last minute that it was almost reluctant to do it. So that's kind of like the biggest gap I'll say about this. So, oh yeah, and then of course we got the scientists who are kind of a little bit wacky. Also, they were like, hey, something like that. They're kind of there. There are also the other animals like the bear, the gecko, and all this stuff. But honestly, they're just. I barely can remember more of their personalities. Oh yeah, there's kind of like this shark. Don't ask why, but at least I will say that that's kind of like the funniest moment of this movie when the apex predator that they're gonna get is a shark. And a shark with a big smile that I am pretty sure that she's related to the shark from Finding Nemo. I'll say nothing about animation. I mean, it's always good, but I will say this, is that unfortunately I'm not exactly very keen about the color gradient. They try to be a little bit too real, and the colors are a little bit too muted, let's say. It's not too colorful. Although I do like that when we see two perspectives, in which when we see kind of like the perspective of a human, the animals look like with the black eye, beady, and all this stuff. But when see the perspective of the animals, they look a little bit more cartoonish. That's the thing I will say from that. And I think I already talked about too much about the theme, the theme of this movie. It's that, well. I already mentioned. I think that the movie didn't need to force out a villain, or maybe they could polish a little bit in which it could fit. But they cited a little bit too much on Mabel's side, but we didn't get enough about the Jerry side. And well, I gotta admit that another problem that I find with the movie is that sometimes it gets a little bit too obnoxious with the jokes. Not all jokes kind of like land. There's kind of like even a moment in which, let's say that it turns into, hey, you want to know what the most annoying sound in the world? Yeah, that kind of moment. And thankfully, it's not kind of like the worst thing, I'll say. Yeah. And the movie, at least for its advantage, the movie is energetic enough to keep your attention. And make you entertained because crazy things happen. This movie is almost the second half of the movie really turns into what was it called? When the animals attack. They should have polished too much onto the messaging and not become too Captain Planet-y side. So overall, I think I've talked enough about it. Do I recommend Hoppers? I'll say that yes. I will admit that it's better than most of it. I can even say that I like it better than Elio, and even I like it much better than Inside Out 2, or I can even say that I like it more than Soul, and definitely better than Turning Red. But it doesn't reach. It doesn't reach. In terms of Coco or the first Toy Story, or even a Bug's Life. I would say that it's a mid-tier Pixar movie. So that technically I'll say. So if you're in the mood, just hop on and you will enjoy this movie that, well, it's not like Avatar, but it's certainly better than Avatar.